You're listening to Food Tech Talk, Supply Chain Insights from Farm to Fork, a podcast discussing the latest trends and technology in the food and supplement industries, featuring conversations with regulatory experts, quality and safety champions, and thought leaders across the industry. I'm your host, Lydia Adams. Let's jump right in. Welcome to Food Tech Talk, Supply Chain Insights from Farm to Fork. Today, we're delighted to welcome Brando Tijerina, Director of Quality Assurance, Commercialization, and Food Safety at Taco John's International. With over a decade of experience in the food industry, Brando has been instrumental in ensuring the highest standards of food safety and quality across Taco John's 400 locations. His expertise in commercialization with new products while maintaining rigorous safety standards has helped shape Taco John's success and growth in the competitive quick service restaurant industry. Welcome, Brando. We're so glad you're here.
Hello, Lydia. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Really excited to talk to you today. So for our audience, if you could share a little bit more about your journey in food safety and kind of what got you to where you are today.
For the past 6 years, I have been part of the Taco John's team, leading the food safety, quality assurance, and commercialization team. We do have a very slim team here at Taco John's, which allows us to be able to be quick and rapid when it comes to some of the changes and some of the actions that we need to take for our restaurants, just to make sure that always is to focus on the guests, protecting our team members, but overall also reducing our brand risk, right? So that has been the focus. Before Taco John's, I worked for other brands such as Red Robin Gourmet Burgers down in Denver, Colorado. I was there for several years doing a very similar role, focusing mainly also on quality assurance and commercialization. And then before that, I have been in manufacturing, I have been in other restaurant chains and back and forth in between there. So I started my career with product development, having a very heavy focus on restaurants, getting a degree with culinary nutrition from Johnson & Wales University, and then getting a food science degree from Kansas State University.
I'm sure that you have built a lot of robust food safety programs, in your experience. What is your approach to food safety and how has that really kind of guided you in your career?
It's a great question, right? I mean, again, putting the team members and the guests at focus, we always want to make sure that we do like a risk assessment, right? And it's what's going to be the best for our team members while ensuring that it is also very smooth for our operations, right? So we have to work cross-functionally and work hand in hand with our other teams within the company just to make sure that we focus on really what's going to make a difference for our products, for our team members, for our operations, and it's going to drive that business moving forward. So then putting that focus into what project needs to be attacked first, is very crucial for us, and aligning cross-functionally. I think there has to be a buy-in from other teams as well as from executive teams, just to make sure that everybody's on the same page and we can all push and have the same message, right? Because if we all have divided messages and attentions, it's not going to succeed. We all have to be on the same page. We all have to know what the defined goal is and be able to work together to be able to get there.
Yes, absolutely. And I keep hearing that same message from others as well, that you have to be aligned to food safety. Like it cannot be something on the other side that people are not paying attention to. Like it has to be in every single department in the company. Sounds like you're definitely on board with that as well. So, specific to Taco John's, obviously I said there's 400 locations nationwide. That is a pretty big footprint. So, how do you guys ensure food safety standards at all of your locations with that many?
So we do have different layers in regards to our processes and procedures. Obviously, we do have our corporate team members that go and visit our restaurants, make sure that they are following our processes. But we also have a very robust training system and training program that is led by some of our teams here in-house. Tremendous teams that create some really good videos and visual tools, quizzes, anything like that. We also do partner with some industry experts to be able to do, auditings from our restaurants to make sure that we're getting really real experience results in regards to what's truly happening at our restaurants and be able to utilize that data to then drive some of the decisions as to what do we need to tackle as an issue out there. Do we need to train on hand washing? Do we need to train on temperatures? Are specific areas being completed? Although we need to put focus on that. So that what helps us really drive what's going to be next or what do we need to focus on? Because unfortunately, with how it is with team members and, the turnover and everything, that's something that is continuously evolving. And, the target is always moving just because sometimes we focus on this area, right? And it already turned. So what are the other areas that are missing? How do we focus on those? And how do we continue the improvement and how do we build it into the culture of the restaurant? Because again, if the leadership within the restaurant doesn't believe in certain things, right, then they won't be pushing some of those standards. So how do we bring them into this journey and have them understand like, hey, this is for the benefit of everybody. It's not just for the benefit of corporate, right? This is a benefit for our restaurants from all this, and we need them for us to be successful.
When you kind of implemented this approach, what challenges have you faced, whether here or, previous in your career, and how did you overcome that when you're trying to really focus in on these standards?
It's always adoption, right? Is the adoption piece and explaining the whys. I think that's crucial for someone to really understand as to what really is needed for us to be able to take action on this, right? Because most of the time when you give someone an action, it's like, hey, just go ahead and do it. They'll do it, but something they don't put the passion into it. They don't put the work that it's needed to be able to get it done just because they don't understand it. They just see it as a task, right? And when you see something as a task, you get that little bit of like, I don't want to do it. I don't feel like it. Is like, there's really no benefit, right? But when you really give them that opportunity to learn about this is why we're doing it. This is about, what the goal is. We need to do this for X, Y, and Z. They have a better understanding of the situation. They learn and then they're able to actually push that message out as well, right? So we are training the trainees for them to be able to push that communication out and then again becomes that culture and becomes that cohesiveness that's what we're looking for. And it's all about just working in, as a team. There's no I in team, right? We got to do this all together. And there's so many pieces around it that if we all don't work together, then something is going to fail, right? And I believe that food safety is one of those things that we all have to share a passion for, right? Because we have the same goal. It doesn't matter what brand you're in. We all have the same goal, and it's protecting our team members, protecting our guests, protect our consumer, and we all want to be successful. And that's the only way that we're going to be.
And I mean, at the same time that you've got that focus, you guys are innovating. Something that's my favorite thing that I read about Taco John's is Taco Tuesday. So I love that. So maybe you could speak a little bit more about how you balance this need for innovation, creating new menu items, and delighting the guests. So at the same time, having that foundation for strict food safety protocols.
It goes back to how we lead as a company. So in our roots, it has to be, cross-functionally, we have to have those communication pieces going on, cross-functionally working together, be able to know what's going on in the brand, from the get-go, from the beginning, from the start. Not only is going to help us to be efficient, but also going to help us to be able to find truly like, what can we do? What boundaries can we push? And how can we do it on a manner that, to your point, right, it's safe and it's going to be successful as well for the brand, right? So what are the key metrics of that goal? And then how can we expand it and be flexible in some areas, but also ensuring that there's always that safety factor, from a food safety standpoint, from a team member standpoint, and also that credibility of the product, right? So right now we do have a fantastic queso going on out in the field and it's a great item. I encourage everybody to be able to go and try it. And it's something that, was accomplished by going on that same manner, right? Is how do we get it out there? How do we create something that is fantastic, tasty, it's great, but it's also safe for our consumer?
I definitely want to try it. And then speaking of taste, the balance between taste and quality, there's obviously a lot of menu items that you guys have that are just well loved, expected. How do you keep that balance of like tasting great, being able to produce it at this level, and then maintaining that quality?
Our team is always looking at our products on a constant basis. Again, we are very slim, so we utilize technology, but also we utilize our partners and we work with our partners very, very closely. It's establishing that partnership of understanding what our expectations are, but also ensuring that we're working with them on a continuous improvement methodology, right? Because that's what's really going to drive quality in both areas, is just ensuring that they understand what our expectations are on the product, but also ensuring that if there's an issue, if there's a problem, we're addressing it together, right? There's no pointing fingers. It's more about how do we, as a entity, as a partnership, right, we are moving forward to ensure that we're able to continue to have that quality. Because on their benefit, is their benefit for us to succeed and vice versa, right? Like we're in this together. Like it's no like, oh, you didn't make it happen. No, it's like if we're successful, they're successful, they sell more products, we sell more products. Like it works very well as a unity. So we work together to be able to look at the products together, understand the products together, right? We do reviews, we taste it, we test it at our restaurants. If there's an issue, we address it, but we address it together. It's not it's your problem, you fix it. Is hey, how can we come together? How do we find solutions for this problem?
Not a either or.
Indeed, indeed. It helps tremendously because now we have that open communication, right? And I think that also it's key being honest with each other, being able to, share really what's happening, what's going on, what's working, what's not working, from both parties. Is be able to build again that trust in between both parties and then have that business partnership. It's all about what business is all about. So that was the foundation of business.
Yeah, and just that allows you to innovate. It allows you to maintain quality, kind of just opens the door for all of that through that communication. And then this is always something I like to ask, because it is food tech talk. So, how have you guys incorporated technology into your quality assurance and food safety practices? And you mentioned adoption. I think that's also key in technology. So, what is your approach there?
We actually heavily utilize technology when it comes to food safety and quality assurance. I think a lot of the decisions that we do is based on data, and we want to make sure that we're able to quantify certain things, certain areas, and be able to create metrics based on that data to see, hey, is this successful? Is this not? But also, we are a very small team. So we got to make sure that we utilize our hours available to be able to address certain areas of our business on an effective manner. If I were to do a lot of the things that I'm doing right now by myself manually, I will not be doing a lot of those things, right? So having the leverage to be able to utilize the tools and the technology available to be efficient at certain things, I think it's very helpful, right? So we do utilize Full Logic as part of our tools to be able to do certain things within our business, addressing traceability, track and trace, the recall piece helps us in being able to be effective at addressing certain issues, certain matters within our business, compliance, all those type of things, ensuring that we're also compliant with our products and all that. So it's very heavy and great into our business and to our team. And we're always looking as to how can we be more efficient? How can we be better? How can we automate, data collection, and how can it help us as we move forward? There's a lot more regulations coming up. There's a lot of things happening in the world. How can we monitor those things, but sometimes you don't have time. So how can you utilize those tools to be more effective, right? I mean, we all want to be more effective. We have more visibility, but data is king and it's going to help us push certain things throughout the system.
We love partnering with Taco John's here at Trustwell. I'm glad you mentioned regulations as well, because I think that's a key element. We're seeing, especially with traceability, we're seeing a lot of regulations coming up with FSMA 204, et cetera. How do you guys really incorporate that piece into your future planning and determining how you're going to address those regulatory changes?
It's fantastic. The good thing is that we actually have been working to be able to have a plan in place for quite some time. And I think right now we are on what we call the implementation phase, being able to actually work with our partners to be able to get the data that we need. As an example, the FSMA 204 coming up, right? Being able to meet what FSMA 204 requires from us and be able to collect the data from our partners to be able to do it. And we are utilizing technology in different aspects to make sure that we're meeting the rule. One, partnering with one of our inventory partners, to be able to help us, collect the information on the receiving aspect from the restaurant standpoint. And then we're utilizing our Full Logic system to be able to do the traceability with our supplier partners to make sure that we're getting the information directly from them and be able to produce the information that the FDA is requiring from us. Having those two, help us and be able to connect and talk and be, again, efficient about it, making sure that we're accurate as well and be able to provide that information on a timely manner, I think it's going to be key. And not just for regulation specifically, right? Because our vision is to be able to have this implemented on a way that then we can have it for other items within our business, just to ensure that then, as a business, we can then quantify more, being able to have traceability even better. If we're going to do it, we're going to do it right, right? And we're going to do it in a lot of different areas, right? I mean, we're almost there. How can we expand it? And how can we utilize the tools that we have to be better as a business?
It's great to comply with regulations, but it's also about that ability to have that data and have data driven decisions within your business. So, yeah, I completely agree with that. And, even as you guys are sort of growing and scaling and creating new products, how do you ensure that you're doing that in such a way that it does have that propensity for growth and scalability? And again, still keeping all of these foundational parts in place with the food safety and quality.
I think that is part of partnering with the right people, the right companies, right? It's just finding those that will have that flexibility and will help us be able to get there, to be able to reproduce everything in the same manner at every restaurant, right? Because that's the expectations from a consumer, right? If they go to Taco John's here and they go to a Taco John's there, it's not about like, oh, well, Jesse's over there producing tacos and they're much better than here, right? Or like, hey, they do better systems over there than this one, right? It's like, how do we replicate that and do it on an effective manner to ensure that they can do it? And it's all about the partnerships, right? When it comes from partnerships with franchisees, partnerships with suppliers, partnerships with entities that will help us drive certain areas of the business, right? So from a food safety side, I think also those are key because based on how they do their business or their practices, it will reflect directly on us. So making sure that we're able to partner with people that have the knowledge and have the tools and have the resources, again, because we're a slim team, be able to then utilize their tools, utilize their knowledge, and take advantage of the relationship. Sometimes they are the experts, right? And they'll be able to provide us guidance as to what will be best for us to be able to move forward and be successful in certain areas.
I've definitely heard commentary from other restaurants sometimes where people say, "Oh, don't go to that location on such and stretch street. Like, go to the one that's downtown." Those types of things. And that's what you're trying to avoid, right? Because you're trying to create that consistency and that experience across every single location, which really does drive into that quality piece. So I love that you mentioned. I think that's great. So you mentioned culture a while back in the interview. And so, talk to me about the food safety culture of Taco John's and kind of like how that plays a part into, the other aspects of the business.
It's fantastic, right? And it's really nice to be able to see that within the leadership in our corporate office, in our restaurants, food safety is one of our top pillars, right? We always have it in focus. We always have it in mind, and how do we build our processes and procedures to ensure that it's always about food safety? And, we try to go above and beyond on the certain food safety things that we have in place for our restaurants. But it's always considering that as part of the decisions when we're at the table, right? So when we're having discussions with the executives, well, how is that going to affect this, which affects food safety, or how it affects these matters, and having those open conversations about it. And for our team members too, of understanding and having that knowledge, and be able to make those decisions as to like, hey, I'm looking into this. Hey, we should engage food safety because it's going to change X, Y, and Z, right? So having our leadership believe on what needs to happen to make sure that, we keep our team members safe and we keep our guests safe and we reduce the brand risk. That alone is very helpful, at least from my end too, because then we're able to push in certain areas that we need to address and they're easier to have those conversations, right? Just because sometimes you don't spend that much time on education piece, they already have that knowledge. They already believe on it, is how then do we get to that goal that we're all seeking?
I'd love to dive into that for the franchise locations because I think, I mean, at least to me, it seems like that adds another layer to the communication and to the culture and stuff. So maybe talk about how that works when you're talking to the franchise locations.
It's all about the training. I mentioned it before, the whys, right? It's just explaining really what's the ROI, what's the why, what's the reasoning behind it to be able to understand why is this important for their business, right? It's just why is that tool, why is that new process, why is that change gonna benefit them in the long run? Sometimes there's challenges because it's like, hey, it's gonna slow us down a little bit, or hey, it's gonna do this, or hey, it's more work. I don't have enough team members, right? I mean, it's always a challenge, but when you really tell a story and tell us to this is why we're doing it. This is how it will benefit our business and how it will benefit not just your business as a franchisee, but as a brand, right? Because what a franchisee does, it will affect other franchisees. So it's like a domino effect that, if one, has some success, how do we get the other ones to get back up and be able to continue that success? If one comes and just pushes the other ones, the whole line is going to fall down. So we want to make sure that we all stay in line and we all stay in the same page and work cohesively, right? Because we're all a brand, we're all the same brand. We are Taco John's. And, it's having them understand that piece that is like, hey, this is a group effort and we all have to pitch in.
Yeah, I love that as well. I mean, it's clear that you have a really strong brand loyalty and authority, within your company and beyond. So that's really cool. So, looking ahead into the future, what do you see as some upcoming trends, maybe some challenges? What do you see as the future of food safety in the next 10 years or so?
It's crazy to think about it, right? I think the FISMA 204 is going to be the talk, right? It's going to be, I mean, it's already the talk of the table. It's, to me, is how can we take that vision and that practice that we're going to be utilizing and expand it even further in other areas, right? I mean, people are having more visibility in regards to what they eat. People are having more visibility as to what they want to see on their table. They're starting to require like certain things, right? And that is always a challenge for us, at least from a QSR standpoint, is one, how do we ensure that we're serving what the guest is requesting from us? But also, how do we align with the goals of the company? So it's looking at what are we going to be able to do to be able to work there. I envision, more of these requirements from the government to ensure that our food supply is safe. I mean, we have quite a bit of things happening right now in the world that will affect us, just looking at how can we prevent them in general. And I do love that, there was a lot of work put into the FISMA 204 piece because it was needed, right? It was something that we were missing and that unfortunately we have to have some really bad situations happen for all of us to learn and say, hey, we need to do this. I feel like if this is successful, in the future, we may see an expansion of this type of requirement, but also it may reflect into other requirements as well that hopefully will be able to drive us an industry together and find solutions. And I think something that I find it very interesting how it worked out is that a lot of people and a lot of industries came and pitched in regards to FISMA 204, providing feedback, providing guidance, and it's still in some way, shape, or form like changing and evolving, right? And I hope that we can have that collaboration as an industry to be able to develop further things for brands to be able to standardize things. Because I feel like if we're able to standardize a lot of our requirements in general, I think it will make everybody's life easier, right? I mean, if everybody are having the same language, if everybody has very similar ways of communicating information, it's just going to help us tremendously overall. So I hope that this shows that like, hey, there's a need for these type of requirements. So then we can then start moving into similar approach in other areas of the business.
I think you're right. Obviously, as an industry, we always have a ways to go, but we've come a long way as well. And it's nice to look to the future and see that I think there is that movement of beyond a regulatory approach and more of a holistic food safety approach.
Technology is going to have a big impact, right? I mean, we're seeing a lot of AI moving forward. So how do we implement AI into our day to day? How do we utilize AI beyond, just the searches, but more as to an actual application and seeing how can it actually help us and support us to be able to react in regards to what's happening out in our restaurants, be able to provide guidance, into our team members as to what is happening at the moment, be able to rectify things that are happening that may not be the best and, be able to provide that guidance live. Technology in general, AI moving forward, I think that's going to be a huge piece for our business. How can we leverage that to be a benefit for all of us? That's going to be an area that we are paying attention. We're looking to see what the future has to offer. We know things coming up that, we're eager to start, exploring. I think there's some very exciting things to come, and it'll be just a matter of understanding, some of the tools that are out there, how can we use them for food safety, quality assurance? And then some of the ones that are specific for that is how can we use it in our business and for us to be able to move forward and be successful.
adapting those tools to your needs. And it's definitely something I've heard a lot on the podcast. And I've spoken with some really insightful folks on AI in the industry. So yeah, I completely agree. That is a huge growth area that we're just gonna see it's exploding already. So given your background and all of your experience, what advice would you give to maybe an emerging food safety professional or someone who's kind of, trying to get started in this industry, and how should they move forward?
It's a very interesting industry, right? But I think what I have found out is that it's very well interconnected, right? I think a lot of food safety professionals have a very open mind in regards to their knowledge. They are very open mind on their experience, but also the industry is very small, right? So if there are people out there that are interested on the industry and learn something that I really didn't do a good job when I was starting my career, it was being able to actually reach out to other experts and be able to get an understanding as to what are they doing, what's happening, what kind of knowledge they can get from them, right? Just reach out and talk to them. A lot of us are open to be able to do that, right? We're open to be able to provide guidance. We're open to be able to share our experiences. And, the more people you know, the more connections you have, and connections are key. And some people are doing certain practices one way, some others are doing it the other way, and food safety is one of those things that I don't think that it's proprietary. I mean, we all have that same goal. Yes, there's details within the processes that are proprietary, right? But in general, as a whole, like all of us are doing a version or something different from each other, right? And we're all looking for the same goal. So go out there, meet people, ask questions, be open. Don't be scared of reach out to competitors, like to see what's happening out there, share notes, like what's going on. Like we're all here on the same boat, right? We all want to be safe, have our team members be safe, have our guests be safe and be successful. So just be open about it.
That's great advice. This industry is all about education and sharing and, as you said, really the passion for the work and the results, the impact that it has. So, my last question for you is, who within the industry would you like to take to lunch and just pick their brain?
I will say Jorge Hernandez from Wendy's. He is a fantastic person. Every time that I hear him talk on a conference, he is an amazing person, has a very interesting background. Every time that I have an interaction, it's always a learning opportunity. That'll be one of those opportunities that I would love to be able to go and sit down with him and be able to understand it.
I'll try to get him on the podcast and let you know. I feel the same way. Great answer. Well, Brando, it's been great talking to you. I really appreciate it. I love the opportunity to hear what's been going on with Taco John's, and always so nice to talk to you, a trustful customer, and see how things are looking out there. So I really appreciate you coming on Food Tech Talk.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I appreciate it. So thank you.
And thanks to our listeners for joining us. Thank you for joining us for another bite-sized nugget of Food Tech Talk, supply chain insights from farm to fork. To learn more about Trustwell and its technology platform that connects product formulation, nutrition analysis, and compliant labeling with traceability, recall readiness, and supply chain transparency, please visit www.trustwell.com. Thanks for listening.